put the focus back on what's going on here in the UAE. And we're getting ready for Expo 2020, of course. So we can learn, of course, from other countries. We can look around the world, see what everybody else did. But of course, we have tremendous plans here for what's going to happen. Very, very, very exciting time. And when we think about it, 2020, it sounds a while away, but actually it's really, 2.5 years. So it'll be with us very, very soon. A lot to do, a lot to look at, and we've got a great panel lined up for you now. So I'd like to first of all introduce you to the moderator, and he will bring his panel up here. So a very warm welcome for Dr. Majid Al-Qasimi. He is from the Ministry of Climate Change and Environment. So Majid, please. By all means, we have with us the Vice President for Impact and Development from Expo 2020, Marianne Faradouni. So if Marianne can please join us. And we'll let you get down to business then, so we will, Majid. Also, of course, the Director of Youth from Expo 2020 Dubai, Alia Al-Ali. Wonderful to see you. Thank you all so much. Great to have you here. The Director of Theme from Expo 2020, Dr. Frederica Bussa. Delighted to have you with us. Good to see you again. From Grimshaw Architects, the Associate Principal, Matthew Utley. Matthew, thank you so much. And tremendous work, of course, for the architects in that too. And Think Design, the founding principal. We're delighted to have Tom Hennies with us as well. Okay, Majid, I leave it in your capable hands. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Majid Al-Qasimi. I'm a vet and I work for the UAE Ministry of Climate Change and Environment. Part of my role developing the UAE's federal food strategy, a quite wide-ranging job, actually looks at everything from architecture to animal husbandry. Equally wide-ranging is our panel today, with architects, designers, and core team members from the Expo 2020. As you will hear, what they all have in common is a passion to spread knowledge and understanding, to create an expo that inspires and educates long after it closes in 2021. Over the next 30 minutes, we will be exploring the journey we are taking as a nation, a journey that started long ago in our Bedouin culture, when survival meant squeezing every drop of sustenance from the world around us, whilst protecting the earth for future generations. Of course, 40 or 50 years ago, looking after our local habitat was a little easier. Populations were smaller. Consumerism in the Middle East was strictly on the need and living in balance and harmony with nature was certainly tough, but relatively straightforward. So our questions today will ask how we can use some of those good habits of the past to educate and re-educate our global visitors to Expo. Can we apply the best of the old with the latest thinking to better serve our fast-changing society? It really is a quest for a life support system, and that is for all human life. So I'd like to introduce the panel in a bit more detail. First of all, Matthew Utley, Associate Principal at Grimshaw Architects, the practice behind one of the most extraordinary buildings ever conceived, the Expo 2020 Sustainability Pavilion. For those of you who haven't had a chance to see it, let me say it's less of a building and more of a machine for harvesting energy and water, quite literally, out of thin air. If Matthew is part of the team responsible for the look and feel of the pavilion, our next panel member, Tom Hennies from Think Design, runs the multifaceted team that is concentrating on what some 25 million expected visitors will experience once inside the pavilion. Bringing these two fascinating and experienced teams together is part of the remit enjoyed by Marianne Faradouni, Vice President of Legacy, Impact and Development at Expo 2020. Marianne's wide role is to ensure that positive economic, educational, and social benefits stem from this groundbreaking mega event. She's also responsible for the ongoing utilization of the site and its pavilion after 2020, as the whole Expo Park becomes a throbbing hub of culture and commerce. Marianne is joined by Federica Bussa, Director of Theme Development at Expo. She's a published author, graduate of MIT, and guest lectures at many universities. Federica has been with the Expo since the early days of the bid and brings a wealth of understanding and experience when it comes to taking themes off paper and putting them into practice. And the final member of our team and panel here is Alia Al-Ali. She makes me feel old. As befits a woman under 25, she's passionate about youth engagement and heads up Expo's relationship and conversations with her peers, the youth. It's especially important to hear how Expo is talking and listening to future generations. So, ladies and gentlemen, your panel for today. If the time does permit, we'll end up getting some questions, but I'll crack on with Federica. Why don't you tell us a little bit about Expo and why sustainability is so central to Expo 2020?
Expos have a very long tradition. They're very sustainable themselves. They have been around over 150 years. And what's really important also about the Dubai Expo 2020 from the perspective of this region is that it's going to be the first mega event of this kind ever hosted in this part of the world. And in the early days, when we started to think about, Expo 2020, designing our theme and content, it would have been inconceivable not to put sustainability at the core of it. To give you a sense of the scale and the potential impact of this expo, it's going to last 6 months between the 20th of October 2020 and the 10th of April 2021, with more than 180 countries coming to the UAE and to Dubai alongside corporations, big and small, international organizations, NGOs, to really showcase prospects of the future through the best achievements that the world has to offer to tackle some of the big challenges that we're all grappling with. And clearly at the center of some of these challenges is the recognition that humanity is becoming a force to reckon with in terms of its impact on the planet. And on the one hand, we could take a negative doom and gloom approach, which is not what we want to do. And in the spirit of our theme, Connecting Minds, Creating the Future, we actually want to say today we have the knowledge, we have the technologies, and above all, we have an unprecedented ability to connect to each other in an environment that really can help amplify and scale the outcome and positive outcomes of our actions on our planet. And really, this is going to be the core message of sustainability that we want to give to our 25 million visitors and beyond, to say, sustainability is not a challenge that we need to overcome. It's actually a path that offers incredible opportunities for ourselves, for future generations, and that this is going to be embodied in our pavilion, and it's going to be embodied in the 200 hectares of our site in the lead up to Expo and well beyond 2020.
So you're talking about a path and a real strong message that's quite a legacy for 2020 on to take. So I'd like to ask Marjan, when you're talking about legacy, how does that work with the legacy planning?
As with every mega event, there's always a question on people's mind about the legacy and the sustainability of such events, such as the World Cup, FIFA, World Expos. And I'm very proud to say that at Expo 2020, as a team, we have been tasked with 2 missions. The first mission is to make sure that we are indeed planning for an exceptional event over a 6-month period to welcome 25 million visitors. But equally important, we have been tasked to think about what legacy that we're leaving behind. So legacy planning is working hand in hand with planning for the 6-month event. And how does that manifest? So legacy manifests physically and non-physically. From a physical perspective, if we look at the site, the 200-hectare site, 80% of the investments as a host nation is going to be retained after the event, and this includes the road infrastructure, the infrastructure itself, the buildings that we're building as hosts. One key one is the sustainability pavilion, which we'll touch on. And what we're also looking at are the intangible impact, using the 6-month event to continue to connect with different individuals and nations, but also to, increase knowledge awareness around our themes, that have global relevance. And for us, especially at Expo 2020 Dubai, considering this being a national project, we really want to leave a strong social impact around youth engagement. They are our future, and hence we are very keen on making sure that they are involved in this process.
So when we talk about legacy and youth, I'd ask Alia, would you be able to let us know what that's like?
As my colleague Marjan mentioned, in order to ensure a sustainable legacy, and specifically a sustainable human and social legacy, it is vital that we not only engage with youth, but also empower them and provide them with a platform so that they can voice their ideas, their suggestions, and their feedback. And youth are at the center of our planning for Expo 2020 since day one, because we are the future. We represent the world going forward, and we represent the very important link between present and future sustainability. And our engagement with youth is not limited to the 6 months of the event. In fact, it's a continuous engagement approach, one that has already started, that will continue during the Expo 2020 and post-Expo 2020. So youth do not have to wait until 2020 to be part of this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. We've already started on our engagements, and we will continue to do that, inshallah.
So I'm hearing both the youth and the legacy. I'd ask Marjan, now, how does that manifest physically?
So if I specifically take the example of the pavilion that we're going to talk about today, the sustainability pavilion, planning for legacy is a challenge while planning for a mega event, but we really also see it as a team as an opportunity. The Sustainability Pavilion is going to be a key attraction during the Expo, where it's going to be a place where you, the visitors, would come and be inspired and learn what it is about sustainability that we're talking about. We've designed a very ambitious brief for this pavilion that we want to do, and I'd like to talk about what that brief is. And the brief was included 2 components to it. We wanted a structure that manifested sustainability, whereby you understand sustainability from how it functions. In addition to that, we wanted this structure to have a very strong function around having experiences and exhibits that inspire the visitors to take care of the planet and share the responsibility that we have towards sustainability. So when we wrote up the brief, it was for a permanent structure that remains even after the 6 months event to continue to inspire. And what we hope that people who go through this, whatever age these people are, of course, youth is at the center of that. We'd like them to come out inspired and empowered to feel that they are change makers in this narrative for sustainability, that they have a responsibility to share this knowledge with their communities, hence this whole legacy of a sustainable community. And we hope to achieve that through the structure.
Well, that's quite a vision. I'd ask actually Matthew from Grimshaw, when you're talking about this brief and this vision that's set up here, how do you design a pavilion to do this? What did you guys have as a challenge?
Well, it is a great challenge, and as Marjan explained, there were a lot of components. So not only does the building, in a sustainable sense, have to be a piece of cutting-edge building technology, it also has to work holistically to support the social and cultural agenda that has been put forth by Expo. Yeah. We wanted the pavilion to be a demonstration or an example of what actually can be achieved in the harsh environments that are present here in the Middle East. You have extreme temperatures, high humidity, yet scarcity of water at the same time. So looking at those things, we set a very difficult task ahead of us, which was to design a building that was energy and water neutral. And it's a great challenge to think of achieving a net zero building in this environment, which means that essentially it produces as much as it consumes. So looking at that, you have to look at passive technologies, active technologies, and how those are embodied in the architecture. Going back to the British pavilion we designed for Seville in '92, it was focused on passive technologies controlling the interior climate. And what we're doing here is using the latest technologies then on top of passive technologies to then create approach this net zero building design. So we still use passive technology. So the building is nestled into the landscape, which helps provide, controls the climate of the interior of the building. It uses a large canopy to shade the structure from the harsh sun. But then combining with the latest developments in technology, we're then approaching that net zero goal. And this is very exciting because it's the first time that a lot of these technologies have been used at this scale. Oh. They might have been used for, you'll see water generation used at a small scale, kind of handheld devices, but not really applied to building scale with this sort of goal, including the loads that we're going to have as an exhibit, as a pavilion.
Okay.
So if you look at the building itself, the solar panels are laid out across the canopy, which for relative size is about the size of Aldar HQ if you were to turn it on its side, which I think a lot of people probably know. So through the solar panels on the canopy, as well as the solar panels on the energy trees, which are spread throughout the site, we're looking to produce around 3.4 gigawatt hours of energy per year, which is roughly enough to power 200 to 300 homes a year. This efficiency is improved on by allowing the energy trees to then articulate and track the sun. In terms of the water generation, we're looking at using three main sources to generate water, and that would be groundwater, wastewater treatment, and then humid air or atmospheric water generation. And by using all of those technologies, we're looking at a peak capacity of somewhere around 22,000 liters per day. Yeah. Now that's at peak, but that's no small feat. So all of those systems combined to make a very, very interesting piece of architecture, but also a piece of technology. Yeah. But the most intriguing part about it is that while the building itself is looking to produce as much as it consumes, it's also looking to give back. So it becomes part of the storyline of the overall Expo agenda, and it becomes an integral part of the master plan, not just about the building itself.
Okay, thank you. Well, this is quite a striking building, and when you look at it from the outside, it's really trying to translate that. But Tom, what does it look like when you go inside? What do we see inside?
Well, we've come to an era where sustainability is not just possible, but it's enormously exciting. And we want to convey this through the exhibits. So we're going to take people into this magnificent building and then on a journey. And that journey is going to take us to places that we haven't been before. For most people, we're going to go through different biomes in the UAE and experience them and experience how people have lived in them for generations in very sustainable ways, and use that as a springboard for also showing what the future looks like and how the UAE is an example of sustainability that is very, very powerful for the future. We're also going to use them as a springboard to see how other people in the world are living in similar environments. So we're going to bring very exciting case studies from around the world of sustainable adaptation that points toward the future. We're going to do this through immersive environments, through immersive digital environments, but also through living exhibits. We're going to look at these biomes, so for instance, the ocean and the coastlines. We can have a living coral reef and a living mangrove that show how these systems are really like oases in the ocean. And oasis is a big theme that we're using to bring all of these together, oases being concentrations of life that are tended and nurtured and live sustainably within the capacity of the surrounding ecosystems. So as I said, we'll see some of these living exhibits. We'll see a slice of in the Hajar Mountains where life concentrates around the flows of water. We'll see a khaf tree in the desert and see the micro habitats that creates, and then use that as a springboard for looking at what we can learn from these natural systems and how people use them.
Who is it you're working with to develop these concepts?
Well, we're working with a whole variety of groups, but particularly with young people. And young people are also going to be represented in the exhibits So not just the living exhibits and the virtual exhibits, but live, young, engaged people who are part of the outreach program who will be able to engage people in dialogue.
So could I ask, Ali, actually, this is youth again. What is your part in the engagement here?
So in working very closely with young people, we're expanding our definition of sustainability. We're expanding it to include their ideas, their feedback, their suggestions, their aspirations. And between Expo 2020 and youth, that is a very reciprocal relationship, one that is at the heart of sustainable approaches to connect minds and to create the future. And the feedback that we have received so far through the various workshops that we've done with youth from different age groups across the UAE is that they not only inspire us, but they also challenge us to go even deeper into examples of how sustainability can be achieved. And the Sustainability Pavilion is a hub for this. And we want to use it as a platform, not only to engage with youth, to integrate their ideas, but also to change their mindsets, to encourage greater awareness and responsibility, and pushes them towards action, perhaps by taking the first steps into sustainability career fields, for example, or by connecting with other people from different parts of the world.
So I'm seeing our time is done. If I may then summarize what the panel here has been speaking about today. We're looking at this building being a living message on sustainability, if I have that right, and really the place that can inspire and really empower everybody, especially the youth, to go out and to connect these different oases. And when you talk about 25 million visitors, you have 6 months in 2021, 180 nations. That's really a golden opportunity to have this legacy start from there on in. So that is our time. Thank you everybody for your time, and unfortunately we won't have time for questions, so thank you very much to the panel.